Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast, podcast number 158. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the evening of Thursday, February the 6th, from the James Strong Show studio in western St. Charles County. Thursday evening podcast because I have a Thursday evening guest. James Greyfalcon in studio. Welcome, man.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me again, James.
I'm glad you made it out. I will say that I've never known an individual who posts more on Facebook than you. And the things that I read that you have on Facebook are just, they're very thought-provoking. And the kind of the news of the day this week has also been something I wanted to have you in studio and comment on it, because I like the way you look at things. You're a guy that leans kind of left in some ways and kind of right in some ways, and it's not kind of in the middle. You're kind of like me. You're not painted with one color brush.
Yes.
You can be right, left, somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So, and we always have a good conversation.
Right.
We always get good feedback from the listeners when you're on the podcast. So I appreciate you taking time to come out. The three topics I wanted to cover. The Iowa Caucuses, I guess is it caucuses or caucus?
It's kind of cockeye now.
Topic number 2 was Rush Limbaugh, and Rush Limbaugh used to call it the Hawkeye Caucus, and that's why
I remember that,
and that's why I thought about that. But Rush Limbaugh was diagnosed with cancer this week, and he also received a Medal of Freedom Award. I'd like to talk a little bit about that, and the hate speak of the left, which is totally different. Once upon a time, the left were the caring, loving, everything is nice people. A long time ago.
Did you remember it that way?
I do, the flower children.
Okay, see, I wasn't old enough. I don't remember them.
Yeah, the make love, not war. Those were always guys on the left, okay? And the guys on the right were always wanting to make war, not love. Okay.
It's very different now.
Exactly. But the worm has turned, and we want to talk a little bit about that, about the violence of the left.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about those three topics. First of all, let's go ahead and start off with the Iowa caucuses. And the winner is?
The winner is.
Do we know yet? As of Thursday, about 6 o'clock.
The groundhogs did not see a shadow. So my first response to that is, it doesn't matter who won. Let me tell you why it doesn't matter who won. They don't do it like the Republicans. Now, with the Republicans, it matters because most states are winner take all or winner bonus. Mm-hmm. You know, Donald Trump beat Ted Cruz in Missouri by 500 votes and got an additional 50 delegates for that. Mm-hmm. The Democrats don't do that. It doesn't matter who comes out on top. They do proportional representation, which means that for your precincts or your areas or whatever, you get delegates for where you win.
So you get half the votes, you get half the delegates.
Right. Okay. More or less. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, now you have to get a certain amount to qualify for any. But Bernie and Pete Buttigieg are going to divide up the lion's share. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if Biden's going to get that many, but he's going to get some. But the bottom line is Iowa doesn't have as many as some, you know. It's
not New Jersey.
It's not New Jersey, and it's not that big a deal. The only thing that really matters in the Democratic primary is Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
The rest of this stuff is all just and
Michael Bloomberg knows that.
He knows that, and I want to say something. No, Joe Biden is not an awesome candidate. I get that, okay? I get that Joe Biden looks like he's listless at times or whatever. But come on, these people, especially the liberal left, they're just savaging this man. I mean, it is just like, I talked to a woman yesterday, and she's, he just looks senile. I'm like, wait a minute. They're okay with hitting this man with every kind of insult in the book. Attacking him for his age, they attack him for being a white male.
He's not as old as Bernie, is he?
He's not as old as Bernie, but Bernie's great, you know? And it's like, I think it's going to work to his advantage on what we're going to talk to later.
Okay.
Because the anger that's being directed towards Biden is reflective of a broader change or a broader evolution of the left half of the Democratic Party that's going to, I think there's going to be a response to that may help Biden.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head about how it really doesn't matter that much because there's not that many delegates around, but
and they split them up
exactly. But it's the first one.
Yeah,
this is it's a number one. Okay,
absolutely.
Now it starts right here. I mean, I think for the Republicans, once upon a time, I think Rick Santorum won.
You won?
Yeah.
Well, they don't know. 3 people won. It was Ron. I think it was what? It was Rick Santorum, someone else, and it turned out Ron Paul won.
Okay,
Ron Paul's the one that actually won.
Whoever won, it didn't matter. Because they're not president.
It didn't matter.
And you go on to New Hampshire.
Right.
I still remember a long time ago. I think this was in Bush 41's second term.
Right.
I think Pat Buchanan won New Hampshire. Okay.
Right.
And they said, well, never in the history of the Republican Party has the guy who won New Hampshire not got the nomination. Except that time. Yeah. And it's it's a caucus, not a primary.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a lot of people criticizing the whole caucus system. And I'm not one to say it's a bad system. I'm also not one to say that I'm not the conspiracy theorist who says, well, now the Democrats, it's in the bag. You can just tell it's been rigged because the people who developed the app were Clinton Foundation people. So she's back in it, and here we go.
And Buttigieg is financially connected. His campaign is connected with the company.
Exactly. All that's true. But what people don't understand, this is a primary.
Right.
This isn't a general election.
No.
If it really doesn't matter who wins the primary, who gets the votes. If they decide to have at the convention, if they decide to draft somebody else, they can because it's their party. Those delegates aren't. What's the word I want to use? They're not committed.
They're not committed. Right?
No.
Actually, they changed some of the rules.
Well, there's no more super delegates.
No, it's not that there are no more super delegates. They're there. They're just not. They won't. They really didn't change anything, James. And this is all tied into what we're talking about today.
Well, I thought there were no more super delegates.
No, there are super delegates, but the super delegates are not identified or involved in the first process. So what happened?
Are they only introduced if somebody doesn't get enough?
From what I understand, I think they're still part of the process, but they're separating it. Like, you know, before, so you win a certain number of delegates, then they also announced that same day super delegates.
Right.
So they had something called the Unity Commission, where Megan Green from St. Louis, who's a 15th Ward council alderperson, and certain other Bernie people went down to change the Democratic primary, which is why, in all fairness, and I give Bernie credit, Bernie has fixed a lot of the things that were stupid about his campaign in 2016. He's actually doing a good job he's changed the dumb things he was doing before, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So I give Bernie credit. He's doing a great job. But this nonsense of Bernie people saying that he's getting screwed is honestly a scam, because Bernie people went and designed this thing. They went down. The reason why this caucus is different is because the Bernie people said, hey, we want to see how there's 3 phases to the whole thing. And before, they just showed how the final phases ended. And what supposedly happened is that Bernie was supposedly ahead, but like there were some people who were for the other people who hated Bernie, so they all went to Clinton. That's the rumor. And we can't see it because So now he goes, we want to see each phase so that we know you're not screwing Bernie.
Well, now you went back to the last election. I'm going to go ahead and go back there too, because you and I disagree on this. Some people, I'm not one of them, but people say that the fix was in, that Clinton had the Democratic primary fixed. I don't think she had it fixed, but she certainly had her thumb on the scale. Because
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, okay. Because she had all those superdelegates, and Wasserman Schultz was in her back pocket because she bailed out the DNC, and our girl Tulsi Gabbard quit over that because she thought that was a bunch of baloney.
Well,
she was the vice chairman of the DNC.
Those are 3 different things, and I'll hit those real quick. As far as the superdelegates, they were going to go for Hillary Clinton because Bernie wasn't a serious guy. They didn't have a serious. It was supposed to be a one-person race. And then Bernie had this miraculous entrance because people wanted to see a race.
Right.
And I agree with that. I agree. And at first I was a little bit more for Bernie because she said something about the no-fly zone in Syria. And I was like, whoa, that's nuts. Let's not have a nuclear war, Secretary Clinton. Anyway, but the superdelegates were not material to the primary, to the actual voting primary. Hillary Clinton won the pledged delegates outright.
Okay.
And she won by 3.7 million votes. Mm-hmm. So the superdelegates, secondly, when Bernie got at the end, he complained about the superdelegates. Then he asked the superdelegates to pick him over her.
So it wasn't he didn't like the process, it's the process didn't favor him.
They didn't like him. And then when it looked like she might get indicted, he kind of used that. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the black folks I know who supported Hillary Clinton went off on homie.
Really?
They were like, dude, and there's this whole thing about, people keep saying, well, who the black people are going to vote for if they don't vote for the Democrat? So you might as well pick Bernie, which is already, to me, kind of racist when you say that to me.
Yeah.
But they made the assumption that all these black folks that were going to vote for Clinton, which is, of course they're not going to vote for Republican, but I know a lot of black women, including my mom, saying if they indict Hillary Clinton, there were a number of black people told me they ain't voting. Mm-hmm. Because to them, they saw Bernie Sanders as being part of a white collusion with Donald Trump. Because the way they saw it was he was sort of hinting at, well, she's going to get indicted, so it's me. And they looked at that as being something that, we know she did something wrong, but they were not happy about that prospect because it's like, so we're just going to pick you now? Yeah. So I think that there's this assumption that we should only be worrying about what the Bernie people say. There are other people out there that are saying, you keep disrespecting us and we'll do the same thing.
Well, that's white people, black people, that's people. And because the same thing happened with the Republicans last time around. I was not a Trump fan. Mm-hmm. I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And people said, well, what are you going to do? Vote for Clinton? I said, no. Oh, so you're going to vote for Trump? Yeah. I said, no. I said, so you're going to throw your vote away?
Yeah, that's what they say.
I said, no, I'm not going to throw my vote away. But I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for her. I'll vote for the libertarian pot smoker before I vote for the other ones. That's who I voted for. I didn't consider it throwing my vote away. But just because the guy you don't want to win, just because he wins the nomination doesn't mean you're going to pull that R lever. I'm not.
Well, and I actually agree with that. I didn't vote in the primary. Mm-hmm. It was just Bernie people were coming to me, and it's happened again, where Bernie people were just out of the blue. And this is why I bring this up about the hate or whatever the left. There's this whole notion of, and Bernie said something that I actually agreed with, that the liberal left has an issue with what they call identity politics. The liberal left.
Sure.
The problem I have with what Bernie said was he pretended that he wasn't part of it. He was a big part of it.
He's the poster child.
He's a poster child of it. And Bernie people, I don't bring up race with them. They bring it up with me. They come up to me out of the blue. And back like 3 or 4 times, Bernie people were like, well, black people. Boom. I said, wait a minute. I don't know you. Why are you bringing that up? You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's a black guy. He thinks like all the rest of them.
Exactly. And
I don't get that.
And that's when some Bernie person broke out, like at the end of the year, came up to me and said, hey, I heard, and it sounds like it's coming down the pike. I heard that people said that black people won't vote for Bernie if the superdelegates go for him. But I know that you would never pick Donald Trump. And I'm like, this is the worst sales pitch I've ever heard. For one thing, what's your name, dude? Secondly, you sound like George Wallace. Thirdly, let me tell you, no, you can't you should stop telling your boy to hint at indictment because that's not really unifying.
Yeah.
So anyway, but real quick, the second part with her thumb on the scale, because she partly funded the DNC.
She absolutely did.
So, yes, the DNC wanted her, but in all fairness, they didn't think Bernie Sanders or Mallory or any of those other people were going to be a consideration.
Sure.
So it wasn't because at first, from what I see, and I've looked into this pretty deeply, it wasn't because they were like, we hate Bernie or we hate O'Malley. They just didn't think they were real contenders, and they didn't want to process that because they knew Hillary Clinton had a lot of baggage. So they wanted to get it done quick. They didn't want a bunch of debates, and that's where the conflict between Debbie Wasserman and Schultz